All right, welcome everybody. Going to call to order our workshop Tuesday, December 17th, 2024, 5:30 p.m. Declaration of a quorum, 6 members present, 1 absent. Thank y'all for being here. Brings to item C, hearing of citizens. I don't believe we have any for the workshop. And then D1, consideration and discussion related to the 25-26 school calendar development process. Everybody on the edge of their seat for this one.
All right. Good evening, everybody. So I will take the opportunity to say I appreciate the Christmas festivities, right? Much props. I like it. So I'm here to give you guys an update on the process that we've used this fall in the development of our calendar. I know a couple of our board members have been sharing that as we've gone along, but definitely want you to see the link that we've gone through with it. And then, of course, have any questions you have, we'll be able to talk through them. If you want to see your calendars, you can find your festive red or green folder that's on there, and you can pull them out and lay them out. We're going to get to those here in a few minutes. But for those of you that are unfamiliar with the process, this is an iterative feedback process that we follow throughout the fall. And it actually begins in September with the first survey that I sent out to the staff. What I wanted to do this year was get input before we started putting examples out there from staff, and I posed it in the questions of, hey, we just had August professional development. What do you think about that? How were those days for you? We had a day off in September. What are your thoughts? And so we gathered that information, and then in October did the same thing in preparation for having days off in October and getting the feedback as we went through the process, so that now we're here with you guys seeing what we've done so far. And the board and the DEIC committee is giving us feedback every step of the way. And so the feedback piece that we sent out, we asked everybody on the committee to share the links and put it out. So it was from staff, students, parents, community members. And every time we came back together, we reviewed it in our DEIC meetings. And so you can see here, the first round of feedback that went out was about August and September. And then the second one was for the October calendar input. And if you look at the numbers, almost 400 folks gave us some feedback in the first round, and then word got out and it doubled, where we had 800 people give us some feedback in the second round, which was great because some of the questions that were in there really helped us in the conversations about what folks are really wanting us to know. And so you can see, broken down on the left side, that table there just shows the different folks that gave us input in September. Start of school was on Wednesday. What do you think about that? How do you feel about that? Overwhelming response that people like to have a partial week instead of a full week because it's better for everybody, right? We had Labor Day off. Do you want to have it off? A resounding yes, right? No surprises, but we had them, so we want to get the feedback on stuff. And so you can see again in October, we had back-to-back PD days. What are your feelings about that? We had a day off. What are your feelings around that? And so giving opportunity for them to tell us, like, yes, we like them to be together, or, yes, the day off was great, but it doesn't have to be paired with the PD days, to be able to help us as we create the different options that we want to put forth in a calendar to just see, okay? And so it was very positive feedback. There was a lot of comments that came through, said, hey, thanks for asking us for our opinion on the front end. So it was good to see that information from them. So we developed the calendars, shared them in DEIC, got some feedback on what we had as options. And then between meetings, we made some adjustments based upon DEIC's input and things that they said, hey, what about this? What about that? Can you make these changes? Did that, brought it back to them in December, got some more feedback and input from them to be able to say, what do you think? And so just as we've done in years past, we talked through in DEIC, these are the components that we want to make sure that we're taking into considerations. Okay, with academics, are we maximizing the learning time and taking advantage of all of our instructional opportunities? We want to take into consideration student and educator wellness in it and spacing out the breaks accordingly, and what types of breaks are they? Are they PD days? Are they full days off? And that's the professional development, educator development piece on there. And then you can see, too, there's the timing of the breaks. How long are the breaks? Because there's the community impact that has, because it is not easy for families to always have childcare for their youngest kids whenever we're out of school for long periods of time. So all those things come into play. And then we also have the special considerations that we talk about. And specifically, we had conversations around the bond. Our community, they granted us the bond funds. And so we have to be able to give our construction companies the opportunity to do the work. And so starting sooner and ending later hurts us in the long run because we have less of a construction window. And so, we talk about what are some of the non-negotiables we have to make sure we maintain in place. And so you'll see that's both of the calendars have August 13th as the first day, and both of them in prior to Memorial Day because we need our construction crews to have the time. Both calendars have the August 1st staff development or work days that are built in there, with the 13th as the first day of school, Labor Day holiday, a week of Thanksgiving off for staff and students, first semester final exams before winter break, early release day before the winter break, and then 2 weeks at winter break. And then as far as the spring goes, January 5th would be staff development student holiday. January 6th would be the first day. Both calendars have Martin Luther King Day off. And then February 16th, staff development student holiday. A&M hasn't released their calendars yet, but traditionally that's the week that they have spring break, so we're anticipating that's what it'll be. If something changes, then we'll come back and let you guys know if we need to adjust. Both calendars have a holiday on April 17th, and then early release on the last day of school, and both of them take into consideration the Memorial Day holiday. Both of them, they all account for the 187 required contract days that we have for our teachers. And with the amount of minutes, we have 5.4 days of instructional extra built in. And as unfortunately we just experienced with Pebble Creek, we need to have a cushion, right? And so we have those built into the structure. So if you look at NN, and before you ask, someone asked me, how did the names come up? There's always the thought of a subliminal message of like a green calendar and a blue calendar and an orange calendar, or the A or the B or the C. So I just came up with totally random lettering, NN and OO, right? They're really just no rhyme or reason to it. But the differences that you see if you look at NN is October 13th would be a day off for everybody. And then the 14th would be a day off for students, but it would be a staff day for professional learning. And then there was actually a lot of feedback from folks about Halloween and wanting to have time off at Halloween, or really the day after Halloween, because of various reasons. Well, this day after Halloween is a Saturday. But I thought, well, let's put some options out there because we want to be able to give some people some choice on some things. So this option has it off on Halloween for kids, but it would be a staff development day. And then the last day of school on this one would be May 21st, and then the 22nd would be a teacher work day. One of the other questions that comes up is graduation. We traditionally get Read Arena on that Friday. It's not set yet, but that's where we would aim for it to be, would be on that Friday as well. And then on calendar 00, October 10th would be a staff development day, and then off on the 13th and 14th for more of a fall break. And then April 20th for staff development, student holiday, and then the last day would be on the 22nd of May, and then the 26th being a teacher work day. Now, there was a lot of input in September and October from staff saying, please do not make us come to work on Saturday. So this option doesn't have it on a Saturday. It has it on the Tuesday coming after. So we'll see what the feedback prompts come in with a Saturday versus a Tuesday. I don't know, but that's where we put it because right now that's what everyone was adamant. No Saturday work day. Said, okay. So that's where we are with the calendar. The next steps are for us to gather feedback. We've got the survey ready to push out and put on the website and email and make it available for everybody. And it's going to be over the entire winter break. We'll close it on January 3rd, and then we'll disaggregate the data, and I'll have it ready for DEIC on the 8th. We'll talk through it there, and then we'll bring it to you guys the next week, hopefully with a recommendation from DEIC as to which calendar we recommend for you guys to consider for adoption. So, questions, comments, things you want to discuss?
I mean, I don't know if it's a question, so I'm kind of thinking out loud and processing it, but I think as often is the case, this one, to me, kind of clearly has some choices where on one of them I like something better, and on the other calendar, I might like something else better. And I'm not just talking about me, but what I've heard from either parents in the past or certainly teachers in the past. So I guess was there. So it makes it hard, I think, when we do the questionnaire for people to say which one, just choose one. Although I know there's the open feedback, correct? But we usually go with kind of the majority vote. I guess, did you feel like that there were some clear? I mean, I don't know did y'all see those clear things? A couple of those. And was there any discussion about trying to put, some of those in one calendar versus the other? Kind of understand what I'm saying, right?
I do, and so that was the reason for asking the questions of the staff in September and October before some of these were developed. I had a question asked by a DEIC member: what if could we vote for I like this fall, but I like this spring? The problem that we can run into is they may not match with the total number of days, because there may be a fall that's preferred that has more days off than a spring has, or vice versa. And so that's where things can get a little tougher to match exactly, but they may. I mean, that's the conversation and the feedback that we have as we go through the process.
That was going to be my question, not to interrupt, Jeff, but
No.
kind of piggybacking off of that. Is there going to be not to make it more difficult for DIC and you guys, but if someone has their opinion of, like you said, well, man, I like the Halloween, but since it's on a Friday, I can give it up this year. And I'd rather give that up, but still be able to get off and not have to come in the Tuesday after Memorial Day. Is that going to be available for someone to comment on?
Well, there's open-ended for them to put things
And
in
then
there.
would y'all possibly, if y'all get enough responses in regard to that, is that something where, hey, maybe we need to take a look at it and see? Okay,
For sure,
just
yeah.
curious. I didn't know if these were, hey, this is it.
No, and that's why I made it clear, we're going to put it out and get feedback, and we'll look at it in cabinet, we'll look at it in DEIC,
Okay.
and if we say, hey, these are the adjustments, let's talk and push and pull. It's the part that does get tough is the hard beginning and end. There's only so many ways you can place the days in between.
Yeah. So, I noticed, I think the same two things you commented on, but it's actually doesn't even seem to kind of be a trade-off. They don't, on the calendar where you don't get Halloween off, you still have to go. You still have the Tuesday PD day. So back to the process, though. So you're saying the feedback you're asking for first is really just, is this the vote? Are these the two going out for vote?
These are the two going for the vote. What I was saying in the beginning, traditionally in the past, we had put things and we sent it to the staff, and the staff as a whole gave us feedback in October or November, and then we would bring the two that we would bring here for you guys. The difference in this year was gathering feedback from the staff earlier in the process while things were fresh. That's really been the only difference in the development of it this year.
And understand too, as Jeff clearly went through on the start date and end date, so it kind of limits the options. A calendar is one of those things. I don't care. You could put 20 calendars out here. You're not ever going to get consensus. Everybody kind of has their things of what they want to do and what they want to see. They do have options. The options were generated by input. And then we take this input that we have moving forward, and every year is a little bit different. The one flexibility that we could have, we currently have 5.5 additional days built into our calendar. But as you could tell, some years we never use them, which is great. We don't want to have to. You have the situation at Pebble Creek. Luckily, we've got 5.5, and so 2 of theirs is gone and 3.5 next. So you got to be careful about taking those days away, not knowing really what's coming forward, because TEA's made it pretty clear going to minutes, even in high drastic areas of a hurricane, tornado, or whatever used to, they would give you waiver days and you didn't have to make those up. They clearly stated they will not do that anymore. It would be on us to make up the time. If we didn't build in the minutes, then you have to either extend the school year or extend the school day and bank the minutes. So we're kind of pigeonholed in there as well as what we can and can't do. You can, some options that I talked a little bit about some of the DEIC members, and I did some math before the meeting. If we added 5 minutes to the end of our school day, okay? Over the course of the entire year, that would bank us 2.5 additional days. So you could take 2.5 additional days. Let's say we decided we wanted to have 5 days built into our calendar. You could have 3 flexible days for staff that students wouldn't have to come. We have enough days for kids, but what other days where there's staff development days, because teachers have to work the 187, that you could take throughout the entire year, that at least possibly 1 day a month, they have an opportunity to work as a staff, and try to make as many of those as possible instead of district staff days. Those are campus staff days. The campus administrators decide what their campus needs on that particular day. That's really the only way you're going to create more flexibility with some days. You're going to have to use the 5.5 that we have, or add it 5 minutes to the school day, and you could generate 2.5 more days. And I haven't heard anything discussed in the upcoming legislative session about the minutes requirement changing. I think they're pretty comfortable with that. I know there's a bill filed that we can't start school prior to September 1 for the tourism industry. That's been filed, I think, the last 3 sessions, and it's filed again. I'm not sure that's going to get much traction.
Well, I mean, on that discussion, I think data shows that we really should be having more days and not the longer days. But so I need to get in that discussion. I will just add, I mean, I think there's a lot of great in here.
Yeah.
I mean, and obviously over the last few years, we have kind of coalesced on some of the key elements. So that is very, good to see. So I think in many ways, both of these things both calendars would make people happy. I was just more, are good, could be good calendars. It's just hard to decide sometimes when there's multiple little differences.
I'll say too, I'm on DEIC with Ms. Iggy, and it's a very big committee made up of community members, teachers, and I feel like we talked a lot about the professional development days for these teachers and got a lot of input, and I think they really felt heard. I feel like y'all presented us with a ton of data and a ton of information, and the last meeting, people were really happy with both options. Nobody, like I said, you're never going to make everybody happy, but there's been a lot of work put into these calendars, and I thank you for really trying to get a lot of input this year.
And Jeff did add, because one of the things we get when you have those days before school starts, teachers always want to know, what's a staff day and what is a work day where I can work in our room. So he denoted those work days so the staff knows ahead of time that first Friday, I think it's August 1st, that they would start. That is a work day. Principals can have an opening, some breakfast, and then teachers want to get their rooms ready. That way they don't have to do it over the summer. And then the day before school starts on that second Tuesday, that is a work day that they can get everything lined up and ready for kids. So that helps them mentally. It's hard to come into the first day and start training when they're concerned about, I got to get my classroom ready, I've got to get everything laid out. That way they know what these days look like prior to.
All right, appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
When will the survey go out?
Tonight.
Tonight, perfect. Oh,
We're
okay.
ready to roll.
There we go. All right. Item 2, Pebble Creek update. Mr. Simek, who is not festive at all tonight. Oh, really? Okay. Are those from your elf costume from a few years back?
I did wear an elf costume at Pebble Creek. I've been reminded of that a lot here recently as I've spent a lot of time at Pebble Creek in the last few days. But actually, Mr. Horak, tis the season of playoff football season, so I am wearing my Clemson Tiger orange tie today in support of the Clemson Tigers, anybody that's playing Dr. Harkrider's University. So who's got my presentation, Mr. Dunson? Oh, there we go. There we go. Where are you at? There we are. Thank you, Mr. Dunson. You did it to me different this time. All right. President Horak, Dr. Harkrider, members of the board, thank you so much. It's hard to believe that tomorrow marks a week from Christmas Day. It also marks 2 weeks from December the 4th, which was the great flood at Pebble Creek Elementary School, as we've been commonly referring to it as. Before I begin and talk a little bit about this, I just want to take a brief moment to thank all of the people that jumped to action on that day. Myself, Ms. Wilson, Mr. Buckner, we were all sitting in a bid opening that you're going to hear a little bit about more later today in the board meeting. And I will tell you that Miss Allen was calling. We were trying to figure out what's going on. It's raining that day. You hear water's coming in the building. You think it's coming underneath maybe the door jamb or something to that effect. And then you get your first video and you're like, that's a lot of water. And I've been at Pebble Creek. I worked there for 2 years, and we had a flood from the fire suppression system, and it flooded out in the entire hallway. And we were out of that hallway for like 4 or 5 days. And so on this day, it was really quite daunting when you walked up and you saw what was going on. But the response from our team throughout the district, from Jarius at the warehouse showing up with pallets, it was delivery day in child nutrition. The freezer was jam-packed to the ceiling, full of brand new boxes of food. Myself, Miss Wilson, Buckner, some of our guys from maintenance operations were in there getting that stuff onto pallets. Redbeard and Jarius are boxing it up, and they're getting it shipped back out. We got all the books out of the library. There's so many things that are going on, so many moving parts. Everybody that was in this room was there helping, taking care of our kiddos with Kids Club. Kids Club showed up. We had buses there so kids could sit in buses and stay warm. It was the response was impressive. And then from our maintenance department, Walter McDaniel, who is over a lot of our fire suppression systems and security, was very instrumental in working with the city, and we're just really appreciative of it. And it was quite impressive, the response, and we're very appreciative. And it just speaks to the culture that we have in CSISD, that there's so much of a can-do, will-do attitude, and everybody just kind of got there, pulled their bootstraps up, and went to work. So I'm always very appreciative of that. And most importantly, I'm appreciative of Miss Allen, Miss Lawhoff, and the team at Pebble Creek. Her teachers have been amazing. They've adjusted, they've adapted, they've been extremely flexible. I have been checking on them every single day in person, and they are doing everything they can to keep things as normal as possible with a routine when you have things in your building that aren't supposed to be there and you know that there was a flood. But their response has been absolutely amazing, and I'm very grateful to them for taking care of our kiddos and keeping them at the forefront of what matters the most. The source of the water, it came from the fire riser room, specifically from a fire main beneath the building. And I'll show you some pictures in just a little bit where you'll see it. And it wound up being a hole just beneath our isolation valve. And I tell you that because that hole being in a vertical pipe beneath our isolation valve prevented us from being able to cut the water off. Okay, the hole was about the size of my fist, and it had some pressure behind it. And so it's coming from underneath the building, and we are not allowed or permitted to shut off a City of College Station water valve. So we're very appreciative of the City of College Station. They responded, got there, helped us locate the valve, and they got it shut off. There was some difficulty there, just some different things going on, but everybody responded, and we were able to get that shut down as quickly as possible. So with that, I'll show you. This is the back porch. It was difficult to get to this area because, one, the fire riser room is located right next to the electrical closet on the back porch. Also, you've got the overhang, so getting some of the heavy equipment in there proved a little bit more challenging. And so what I want to show you here is this trench. This was not trenched out by any workers. This was trenched out by the water that was blowing out of this hole. That's the amount of pressure that was coming out and through. So once they cut through this concrete and got here, all of this clean area, this was filled full of dirt and other debris. It was all washed out by the pressure coming out of this pipe, this hole that you see right here. And so some of what was coming into the building was silt. It was large dirt particles. It was anything and everything that you see around that area there is what was coming back up and under the wall and into the building. And so it was really, the hole is, I put my fist into it, all but my pinky finger went into that hole. And that's a 30-year-old pipe, 28 years if you want to be exact. Dr. Brad Lancaster reminded me that it was 28, not 30. He said I couldn't age him anymore. And so once we cut that pipe out for the adjuster and to start making our repairs, that pipe just deteriorated. And you can see here that we were probably headed towards some type of disaster at some point. And you'll just see where the pipe fell apart. And this is how deep underneath the building we were. This is a 12-foot ladder. This is two gentlemen standing in that hole. And so the response from that team was very quickly. We were very appreciative of the team at Summit Fire and Security and helping us get that taken care of and back up and running as quickly as possible. And so I want to show you this. At 3:03 p.m., you'll see this video here. This is our gymnasium, and you'll see, I mean, this is pretty much the entire school. We've decided Miss Allen wanted to turn it into a kiddie pool, and we obliged. But at 9:11 p.m. that night, this is the gym. This is the hallway at 9:11 p.m. that night. This is the next morning. What we've done here is we've pulled off the baseboards, and we have drilled holes into the drywall. We know that we're going to have to come back and do some major extensive repair. We opted right now to do everything that we could to get kids safely back into the building as quickly as possible, not to disrupt our families 2 weeks prior to the school. We also understand the importance of keeping kids in their routines and keeping kids in the building for learning to continue to happen. Granted, there is a lot of fun that happens at schools the last week, but at the same time, we wanted our kids to be able to experience that. And so what this did for us is it allowed us to air this out as much as possible. They were back there today doing moisture testing, running large probes up into these walls. And what you'll see here is we went ahead and opted in the library very early on. Water got trapped between the bookshelves and the wall. And so we had to remove all the books, remove all the bookshelves, and there was a lot that had to go on there. And so this is a 2-foot flood cut that you see. We opted not to do that the last 2 weeks at that very time because we knew we could get the kids into the building, and we didn't want to have the kids in the building with this exposed everywhere. The library has been closed. There's a lot of work that needs to take place in the library. Tomorrow afternoon at 2 p.m., myself and Mr. Buckner, Ms. Wilson will be coming over. We will be meeting with the adjuster and the team and everybody else to determine exactly what it is that they're going to give us the go-ahead to go and take care of throughout the building. So everywhere that you see outlined in blue is areas that was impacted. So the water came in here. The fire riser room is here. It forced itself up and in and through a wall hole here. The fire riser has been repaired. I'll show you briefly in a moment. But the water came in through here, and this is the source, and this is what pushed out throughout the entire building. So you'll notice the kindergarten wing was not touched. First grade was not touched. Very little bit of the second grade. The middle of the building really took it pretty hard. This music room took it hard. The two places that we're worried the most about floors happen to be the music room and the library. And that's because they have carpet squares and not rollout carpet. The rollout carpet that we have in the building, and very much a thank you to Russ Kellen and Kellen Floors. He was the installer on this project. He showed up Wednesday night. He showed back up Thursday morning to speak to us about everything, to check things out. And the carpet that we have has a sealant to it. It's got a backing that allows it to be sealed. And so unless the water penetrates from underneath the walls, it is impenetrable, and it's not going to be a situation where we have any issues. In fact, what's quite impressive is only one tile popped in the entire building. And that was a tile over here in front of one of these restrooms. And it was a situation where it was just laying up on some tile, and it wouldn't have mattered. It was going to pop one way or another. But we have had no tile pop, no carpet has peeled. There is not even a smell in the building. I have been there every single day. Last week I was there twice a day. This week I have been there every day to check in on staff, to help them, accommodate them as best I can. And they're doing great. Miss Allen and her team have got it rocking and rolling, and the kids haven't missed a beat. And you're going to see there's some things that are noticeably different about the building. So one of the things that we did on Sunday was we did air quality testing, and that was December the 8th, 4 days after the flood. And so we collected samples from 20 different areas. We didn't just focus on the areas of water intrusion. We made sure to focus throughout the building. And with this, they're comparing, they're doing your indoor mold spore count. They're comparing it to your outdoor mold spore count. And we came back really, really clean. Our indoor count was great. There's always going to be some level, but you're just comparing it to outside air and you want to be beneath that. And we were significantly lower than our outdoor comparison levels. There was absolutely no black mold detected. And out of an abundance of caution, because we will be doing more work. So I'm telling you, Thursday when the kids roll out, crews are rolling in. And so additional air quality testing has been set up. We've not yet confirmed. It could be January the 2nd or it could be January the 3rd, but we will have an additional air quality test done before the kids and the staff return to the building after the winter break. And so this is your fire main. And so this is directly beneath it. This was that vertical pipe where that hole was about right here. And this is what we've done. This has been repaired. It's repaired here. And then you can see as of Monday, or excuse me, this was Wednesday of last week, it had already been concrete over and taken care of, and it was resolved. And so all of this was filled. They do cement around the pipe, and they come in, dry cement around the pipe, and then they come in and load different types of sand and dirt on top. And so this has all been compacted and taken care of there. So this is what the staff has been dealing with for the last 2 weeks. So this is a desiccant dehumidifier, and it is if you've been by Pebble Creek there on the the west side of the building, you'll see a large 18-wheeler. It's got a big just went blank on what I'm trying to think of here. I'll think of that in just a moment, but this is running after hours, and so as soon as the kids are out of the building, they turn this on, and it is pumping warm, dry air into the building. And so this is to combat anything that might come with mold, and that might come with wet walls. We know that we're going to have wet walls. There's no way that you have drywall in a building and have that much water in the building and not have water sucked up into the walls, which is why we're fully prepared to do a 2-foot flood cut, and I'll talk about that in just a moment. And so this is a dehumidifier. These are fans, and these are in every single area that was impacted by the flood. And we're checking on these daily. They're getting drained daily, and these are pulling out all the moisture that's in the air within these classrooms. So tomorrow, they started today. They'll finish moisture testing tomorrow. Over the winter break, we will do a 2-foot flood cut in all the impacted areas. We won't do it on the wainscot, which is that nice new tile. That's one of the hardest things about this with Pebble Creek is this school was just recently remodeled 2 years ago. And so that's one of the hard hit parts of that. But we'll do a 2-foot flood cut on that impacted areas, very similar to what you saw in the library. They'll come in over the winter break, they'll hang, they'll tape, and they'll float new sheetrock. We'll air it out. We'll reinstall the base molding, and then we'll determine tomorrow how much is going to be done with floors and whatever else needs to take place within the building. Our adjuster, we met with him last 2 days after the fact, so a week ago last Friday. The staff was very timely in getting together everything that was damaged into a spreadsheet. Ms. Allen was able to share that with us. We got that to the adjuster. He's been able to ask questions, ask for pictures, and we'll be meeting on site with him tomorrow in person. And so that's what I have for you. There's a lot taking place. I'll be checking on Pebble Creek pretty much every day but Christmas Day over the winter break. And so it is a priority for us. And the biggest thing, like I said, was the response from not only our team, but the people that we brought in to consult to help us with this process was amazing. Mr. Buckner and I were there late that Wednesday evening, came back, left, came back. And at 10:30 at night, I stopped counting at 50 workers. As part of the cotton restoration team. And I will tell you, this wasn't 50 workers who were sitting around on their cell phones. This was 50 workers, and it was 50 plus that were absolutely getting it. By 3 a.m. that morning, you would not have known there was water in that building, with the exception that we had dehumidifiers running and fans running and everything else going on throughout the building. So with that, questions?
I would start by just, again, thanking and congratulating everybody for the response. I think we got a message on Saturday that, hey, school's going to be starting on Monday. That was not expected with all the issues. And also with the understanding that, hey, this is almost a 30-year-old building. I guess the question that we have to ask, and I'm sure y'all have thought about, is there anything we could have done to prevent this happening?
It's a 30-year-old cast iron pipe that's beneath the building. It's beneath the surface level. And so it's certainly a question that I've asked, and Mr. Buckner and I have kicked around and talked, and even Dr. Harkar and I have discussed it some. Some things just wear out. A 30-year-old cast iron pipe, you have no idea when the wear and tear on that might happen. We are certainly doing things and designing preventative maintenance plans and addressing things now with our deferred maintenance from the bond package. There's different things that we're doing to try to prevent these things, but there's just some things you can't predict. And unfortunately, with the location of this one, it prevented us from using that isolation valve, so more water got into the building. Had it been a little bit further down and on a different pipe, we could have cut the isolation valve and it would have been over. But it was just that perfect location. And so certainly things that we're considering and things that we'll be discussing in our after-action review, and even something that we'll talk about with our adjuster and our insurance agents and different things moving forward. But at this point, you can't predict when a 30-year-old cast iron pipe is going to give out. It's just kind of one of those things.
Anything else?
Well, I mean, again, it's amazing the reaction, and like you said, in almost 12 hours, you could barely tell anybody any of that water had been there. And I also heard wonderful stories about how, like you kind of mentioned, the teachers handled the kids that day, because I'm sure it was. I mean, I know it was scary for some of them, so that was important as well. You never know what kind of thing can happen at a school. I don't think that's really was part of our reaction. Our emergency plan was to have to deal with a flood in a.
No, I don't think that was on Miss Allen as a first-year principal. I don't think that was on her list of things she wanted to accomplish or check off on her bingo card. So
lots of good work from everybody all around. So even back to kind of Mr. Ben's question, like that pipe itself, how far did you go? Is every bit of that old 30-year-old pipe gone, or at that location?
And so you'll see with our repair, the hole was here. and we ran new pipe all the way out through back underneath the porch as far as we could run it before we ran into a large conduit box that was beneath the not a conduit box, but a large box that was beneath a concrete box that was beneath the building. So we replaced everything that we possibly could and everything that we needed to replace. And we sat there with the engineers that were there on site as part of Summit's team. And everybody concurred that this was the best approach for us. And so we replaced more than we needed to, but we were just trying to make sure that we weren't going to come back and do this again in 3 years or do this again in 5 years and so on and so forth.
Because I don't know, I mean, is it possible to know how many of these where we have old pipes and how many are the city's old pipes versus, that are actually our responsibility?
It is a paranoia question that I have asked myself, and it is one of those things that we're exploring and learning more about all the time. Obviously, we have some buildings that are very old, that have been here for a really long time. I mean, coming to mind, South Knoll's over 50 years old, Oakwood's over 40 years old. And some buildings that have been around for a really long time and served us really well for a long time. And so we're exploring, we're looking at as-built plans, and we're making sure that we understand where valves are, where shutoff valves are for the city, where shutoff valves are for us, and what we can do to be as prepared as possible for a situation like this in the future. It's just, emergencies are emergencies. You don't plan for them. You certainly don't plan for them to happen right at dismissal on a cold, wet, rainy day. But again, we responded, and we responded very quickly, and it was everybody on board, and we're doing everything that we can to be as educated as possible moving forward, to see if there's something we can be, we'd rather be, proactive versus reactive. But sometimes that's why they're called emergencies. You have to be reactive, and I couldn't be more proud of the response from the Pebble Creek team and Miss Allen and her staff, and from the people within this room and the people within the district that just stepped up and took care of business. And if you would have told me on Wednesday when I rolled it, I called Dr. Hawkright and I said, they might be getting an early Christmas break. That was my initial thought process when I saw what was going on. And so we worked it really hard to get them back in. And, on Sunday afternoon, whenever Miss Allen's staff got the word that they were going to come back in, I rolled in Sunday evening to check on things, to help people, to see what I could do to help. And the amount of people that were there, putting their classrooms back together, that were invested in making sure that their kids came back into the most normal setting possible, was nothing short of impressive. It was fantastic to see. And I think Miss Allen has a lot to be proud of with her staff and their response to this unfortunate emergency.
Very much so.
I'm sorry.
Well, I had two other thoughts, but you go ahead. Go ahead.
Just
Maybe this thing.
another follow-up question, because just hit me. I'm glad this happened then, not next week. During the summer or during the winter break and so forth, I mean, do we have anybody checking the schools to their cameras or?
Yeah, everybody's not off during the entire break.
Yeah,
Depending on the schedule that you're on, we have staff members that are working throughout the break.
So, but they're doing walkthroughs and.
Depending on what they're working on, depending on what needs that there are, there may be someone at Pebble Creek at some point in time, and there may not be, depending on what the needs are. Obviously, this year, there'll be quite a few people there for about 14 days.
Our maintenance team works, and they're usually using that time when there's not students in the building to do more difficult work orders. And so there's usually somebody putting toes into a building at some point over the break. A&M had a very similar situation at one of their buildings where it happened on like over a weekend type deal.
Yeah.
And it just kept running and kept running and kept running. And so, it happens, and you just do the best you can with the response and try to get your kids back in the building as quick as possible.
Really?
My other two thoughts were that I think kind of, as a board member, I think of one is obviously you mentioned the insurance, right? And luckily we are covered by insurance, but as we do have older buildings and more, we have a lot of buildings right now, just a reminder that we pay a lot for insurance, and this is why. And and I know we've had a few insurance claims over the last couple of years. Do we know if this is more than normal? It seems kind of like a lot, or is it just a timing issue as far as kind of insurance?
Well, I think one thing you're mentioning on insurance is hailstorm. So
Yeah.
obviously, we have zero control over that. So, that's nothing we can do about that piece of it. And then this is a piece where you've got 19 campuses. Something's going to happen at some point in time, and I know Josh had asked about the preventative stuff. You saw the extensive holes that were done. It's not something we're going to go around to campuses and start digging holes and checking pipes. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. That's not in the preventative maintenance type of operations. HVAC, roofs, things like that are. But it did give us an opportunity, like Josh had said, along with Paul, is going through and checking specs and plans to making sure, because we've got a new team out at facilities, new people get hired, where the valves are, where the plans, and all those sorts of things to help us get prepped if we do have a situation of, again, okay, we went through this, we learned this and that, and now we know exactly what we're looking for.
No, and I mean, that was kind of my point on the 19 schools that we have now.
Right.
We should expect some more of these, and while we do have insurance, the insurance costs us money, and we also have, I mean, there's some out of pocket, right?
Yeah,
every time
you never expect it.
Yeah.
We don't want to expect it. We're just going to add it to the list.
We're also
I know
blessed.
you don't like talking about insurance claims. I know, Jeff.
Well, and anything dealing with restoration, if you've got to deal with a restoration project, obviously water would be tops on the list versus fire.
Yep.
The water can be cleaned up in a fairly quickly amount of time. Fire obviously is extensive damage. And then you look at, we've got 700 kids, because in our mind, we're starting to think, okay, how many days do we have banked? What does that look like? Because we don't have a way to relocate 700 students, unless it was something obviously extremely catastrophic and, hey, we're not going to be in the building for 3 months. We've got a game plan to start calling resources in the city of what that potentially would look like.
And that was one of the things that was great too. I had principals calling me Wednesday evening saying, I've got 11 classrooms available. I can squeeze out 2 classrooms available. Principals were more than ready to step up to help get kids back into the building. And so I thought that was a really impressive response as well.
I appreciate your team's response and everybody. It sounds like everyone did a great job. I also appreciate you clarifying the water quality, because there was a lot of misinformation out there on social media that this was clean water. It was just basically dirt that came in from where the blowout hole was. And I appreciate you letting everybody know that.
It was a lot of dirt. It was a lot of silt, and it was a lot of pressure coming out of that pipe. It was a lot for sure. So, any other questions?
Anything else? Appreciate the update.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you. That'll bring us to item E, adjourn.